Let's Talk Diz, a show that gives you everything you need to know to help make your Disney vacation as magical as can be in just about 20 minutes. I'm your host, Jeff Coviello. With me each week is Disney Master Sandy from Easy Diz by Instant Impressions Travel Services. Sandy, how are you this week?
I am feeling nostalgic.
Well, that's good. We are back on the West Coast, and last time we talked to you about the West Coast, we were talking about the 70th anniversary of Disneyland Resort. And tonight we're going to talk kind of about something similar, but you have a couple of tours that are specific to the 70th anniversary that you wanted to share with everybody.
That's correct. So 2 weeks ago, we did the show that covered the 70th. We talked all about the parades and the nighttime shows and all the great things that they've got going. We didn't do this show right away. We took a break because we had to bring you all that live news from Hollywood Studios.
That's right.
But we're going to talk about these new tours. And I've talked about tours at Disneyland before. I've talked about Disneyland. I wax about it often because it is extra magical. And these tours are really about taking you back in time, really feeling what Walt designed, what drove him to lay out the park the way that he did and come up with all these different things. And so they created 2 new tours. They're very different, but they're unique perspectives. And I'm going to sound a little cocky when I say this, so you'll all forgive me.
Okay.
Sometimes I take these tours and it's just because I kind of want to hear it and I want to see what they're seeing. And I don't feel like I'm going to walk away with much knowledge. But I have to say, the Disneyland Railroad Guided Tour, which has been on a bucket list for me for years and years now to get some of that access, really brought some new little tidbits to life for me. So it was interesting to hear it all and kind of go back and fact check it and read it a little more in depth as I hunted the web. So great tours for those who are just looking for that overview, but also those who are Disney files and feel like they've done it all and there's nothing new for them. This is the thing for you to do.
Yeah, those of us that when somebody asks, where is this on the map? And you just look at them and say, I am the map. I don't need that. I don't need the map.
That is correct.
Got it. All right, well, let's start with the first one, which is called the very, very simple and succinct Times for a Story Celebration 70th Anniversary Guided Tour at Disneyland Resort.
3 times fast, real quick. What was that name again?
No, I will not do that. I will not do that. Josh, tomorrow, I will not do that. Thank you for the short name. Times for a Story of Celebration 70th Anniversary Guided Tour at Disneyland Resort.
There you go. Thank you. See, and I let you do it so that I didn't have to.
You're so kind.
I will say one unique thing about both of these tours. They are both full on-stage tours. So while they share some backstage history, so to speak,
right,
unique for the tours, a lot of them are 16 and up. Both of these tours are ages 3 and up, since you are out in the park and on stage. And if you are under 14, you must have somebody 18 or older with you. So this one is a walking tour plus a little bit of riding. It's a 2-hour tour. It happens 4 times a day, 2 morning options, 9:15 and 9:45. And then again, midday, right at that lunchtime, 12:30 and 1 p.m. And set up very similar to Walt Disney World. When you walk into Disneyland, remember it's not Magic Kingdom, that park with the castle out there. Immediately on your left, once you go under the train station, is the tour garden. So you can check in for your tour, hang out in the shade and wait. One of the things that they've been doing for a couple of years now on the tours that I really appreciate is everybody gets a personal listening device. So as you're doing these walking tours through the park, and obviously there's a lot of noise, and even though you're a small group of less than 20, it is hard to be right next to the guide at all times. But with that earpiece, you can hear everything.
Yeah, that's a cool little feature.
Yes, and of course they recycle the sound boxes, but for those that are worried about sanitary needs, the earpieces are single use. Take them home, do with them or don't do with them, but they are not a shared piece.
What a souvenir.
There you go.
Right.
That is not the only souvenir from this
Oh,
day.
nice, nice. All right, so tell us a little bit about it.
It's, as I said, a 2-hour walking tour. So you're going to start right near the front of the park, head right down Main Street, get a little bit of the history of Main Street. And remember, when Disneyland was being built, this was the original park. So it was all Walt being on site and Walt's vision and down the road and how the building went. And they head to two key attractions during this tour that are a big part of what Walt wanted to see in Disneyland. The very first is a ride on the Mark Twain riverboat. So you can take that ride, understand why that was important, how that body of water and the boat work into the park. Again, for those who haven't made it to the West Coast, yes, Jeff, I'm calling you out there.
Again.
And some of our listeners, you can visualize it very similar to Walt Disney World, though we are saying goodbye to the riverboat there. That boat is going to go past the Haunted Mansion area and around. So talks about Mark Twain's influence and Walt's love for Mark Twain. And then, of course, a ride on the Disneyland Railroad. And again, their railroad is unique in the places that it goes. It has up to 4 stops. They don't always have all of the stations open. So it depends on the time of year and how many trains are on the track. But take a ride on the railroad. And of course, in between, they stop and get you a little snack. We all love a little bit of popcorn.
Of course.
Wouldn't be Disney without popcorn.
No.
And after you're done with the tour, while it is, as I said, only a 2-hour tour, there's 2 great bonuses to this tour. One is a special pass for the Lightning Lane Return of Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. And again, that is a new attraction, but a quintessential part of both Disney parks, East Coast and West, because it is the first attraction devoted to that original iconic couple of Mickey and Minnie.
Yeah.
And then you've got hours to go enjoy the park on your own, no special access, thrills, anything. But then reconvene with your group in a special Paint the Night viewing area. And again, go back 2 weeks, listen to my love for that parade, and a reserved spot. It is not a seated spot, it is standing only, but not having to get there super early and having that great view is prime. So it is $120 for your 2 hours, but you are getting 3 attractions, the Paint the Night viewing, the popcorn, those little bits of nostalgia, and a special 70th anniversary guided tour pin.
So 3 things I love about that is I love that it starts as you walk in and you get to walk down Main Street, right? I think if you're going to celebrate Disneyland as it should be, you're walking in the footsteps of Walt, which I think is cool. 2, I love that the Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway is a part of it because of the iconic nature of the characters. And 3, which is really the segue into the next tour, I love that the railroad is a part of it. Because anybody
really, and I thought you were going for the popcorn.
No, no, because anybody that knows anything about Walt Disney, and if you're listening to this podcast, I'm assuming you do, you know how much affinity Walt had for trains and railroad. So I think that that's a nice, cool little tour, but it does segue nicely into the second tour that you want to talk about, which is really all about the Disneyland Railroad.
And this is a tour that I was so excited to see they announced. Again, I have, in some ways, a very short bucket list of things that I have not done for Disney. And one of those things is riding the Lily Bell train. And it's actually one specific car that Walt designed with Lillian, and she did ride in. They rode as a couple on that train in the parks. It normally is not on the tracks. They want to preserve it and keep it. It does come out every once in a while. I was there once when it was supposed to be running, and it was like a 1-month special, and you had to go to town hall and sign up. And I went and they're like, no, we're not doing that today.
Right.
So when I saw that not only was this the history of the railroad, but the opportunity to ride in this car, I'll be honest, they could have charged triple. I was like, sign me up. I'm getting on this tour.
Sure.
This tour is about 2.5 hours.
Okay.
It also is a lot of walking. We did have somebody in our group that wasn't prepared for the amount of walking. They kind of guide us through the park, giving us the history of the railroad, Walt's history, and the history of the park, because it's interesting to know in the parks, if you think about it, the railway is the first thing that guests usually see.
Sure.
You know, you come through those, I still call them turnstiles because I haven't figured out a better word.
Right.
And you see that station. And they talked about the iconic design and part of why Walt wanted a railway and why it's elevated when you arrive is that the railway serves as a fence. Everything stays inside
Right.
his beloved trains.
Yeah, makes sense.
And so, again, if you think about, we've talked in many shows about sounds and how you transfer from one land to the other. You know, there's a lot of noise in that hubbub as everybody's trying to scan their tickets and now their facial recognition and that first picture and a lot of commotion on that side. But as you go through the tunnel, you really enter that new realm. So this tour also starts right at that tour garden. It starts with a little snack because they're sending you out on tour.
Sure.
And then we head up on Main Street and start to learn about the history of the railway, Walt's trains, both in his yard and his fascination. We talked all about Marshline, Missouri, and Walt's growing up, and Main Street, USA, and the importance of trains back in the day. And what scale train he wanted and how some of those original Imagineers are original Imagineers because they were train aficionados, and that is Walt's connection to them.
Yeah, it's so fun.
Very similar to when we talked about him buying up land in Walt Disney World and all the different shell companies he did it under. One of the interesting things that I learned is initially the railway was known as the Retlaw Railway.
Okay.
Retlaw, if you turn it around, is Walter spelled backwards.
There you go.
And it was its own railway. Again, some of history is not always kind. Some of it's about legal. It operated as its own railway. It actually operated with the Pacific Railway under some of their guidance because they are full-size trains.
Right, right.
So you do see some of that old railway name and paraphernalia carry forward.
Very cool.
One of the changes that they have made, and they always try, we talk about authentic storytelling all the time, but they have made a big change to the railway. Initially, the railways were coal cars and they worked with that steam.
Yeah.
They have worked to create them to be biodiesel engines.
Huh.
So we were all encouraged to make sure that we ate French fries every day that we were in the park because that French fry oil is what now powers the locomotives.
Well, I'm sure there's no shortage of that.
You know, we all have to do our share. What
Nice.
can I tell you?
Very cool. What
So
else?
we did head all the way back right outside of the old Toontown to board the train in that station. And I'll talk about the Lily Bell car a little bit more in a minute. But as we went around the tracks all the way from the back, we did a full loop. We talked about some of the design. And again, if you've ridden on the train cars before in either park or any of the parks, you know that it was more than a mode of transportation.
Right.
Here you can see some of the attractions. I love in Disneyland that you are kind of part of Small World. It's on the outside, but for people looking at Small World, it's a really neat photo when the train is kind of going through the backdrop there. And how they picked where the stations were built and all of those different things. But one of the unique things that I never knew is when you're over in the New Orleans Square train station, you can listen to Morse code. And I'm familiar with Morse code. My ex-husband is a ham radio operator. I've heard enough Morse code for my life, but I can't decode it. But if you can decode it or you tape it and want to learn what
Right.
it says, to all who come to this happy place, welcome.
It's awesome.
And, when you talk about Disney and attention to detail, like how cool is that? The opening line to Walt's speech at Disneyland is forever in the park, over and over in Morse code.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's just one of those things that, sticks with you. I love it. I love every bit of it.
So I'm going to talk about what was mostly the highlight of the tour for me now,
Okay.
and that is the Lily Bell car. And it is phenomenal. It is, again, from the 60s, and it is that red, now a little bit off red, twinged a little on the pink side, crushed velvet, padded chairs. And again, back in the day, smoking was fashionable. So there's a Lillian's smoking jacket is hanging and a picture of the family. And this car was their personal car when they were in the park. Obviously, they had personal guests on it. It seats a very limited number of people. And just the detail that Lillian put into it, and then some of the detail that they have replicated. For example, I learned that she always had fresh flowers in the car. So they don't have fresh flowers, but there are flower arrangements. And again, the family photos and the level of nostalgia and gifts that were given to them by prominent people. Again, you can just feel their presence, and an amazing, amazing step back in time. They've done an incredible job of preserving this car.
Sounds awesome.
But I
There's a
will
but.
give the low light now.
I was gonna say there's a but. Okay, go ahead.
It is not an air-conditioned car. Unlike the rest of the train that is open air, for a reason, it is open air. This is a car with windows, and when all of the windows are closed, the car will get well in excess of 100 degrees. With all of the windows open, it can hit that kind of temperature depending on the outside air temperature in California. So unfortunately, while the first trip of the day did get to ride in the Lily Bell, my tour had time to tour the car and take all the photos we wanted and sit in the car, and I'll share with you a video of the car and a photo of me in the car. But due to excessive heat, we were not allowed to ride in it. We did ride in the car next to it. So they did offer us 100% refund if we didn't want to take the tour. This was not a surprise that we didn't get to ride into it. That said, it was not something we were notified of in advance. I wish they had let us do, I get that maybe we couldn't do all of the full route, but it would have been nice if they let us do all, one short spot.
Yeah, just one stop. Yeah, I mean, you wanted to ride
But
in it. It must have been cool to look at, though.
it was amazing. So maybe one day I'll ride in it. It is certainly still a highlight for me. Again, this tour does allow ages 3 and up. It is $145 a person. So I don't know that I'm running with my 3-year-old at $145, to be honest.
No, that's a tough sell.
Again, because the car is from 1960, it is not ADA accessible. So if you are using a wheelchair or an ECV, you will need to be able to transfer, and it is an old railroad car. So it's those kind of 2 big steps up to be able to get into it,
Sure.
but well worth it. When we completed our loop on the railroad, we were also greeted with a souvenir map of the railroad. So just
That's cool.
an amazing souvenir, that old looking beige parchment paper with that
Sure.
brown print on it so that it had that great look. And that is definitely one of those things that you will find framed and on my wall, because what a great piece of Disney history.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean the concept of the railroad is such quintessential Walt that like just that idea of all of that and seeing the car that he designed for his wife, like it's just such a cool Disney file moment to have, right? I mean
And again, if you studied Walt or know Walt, that's definitely the Lily Bell comes up over and over,
yes, yeah.
along with Walt's love of trains. I will say, when I looked on the app tonight, the tour, which is a 70th anniversary tour, so that 14-15 month window is on hiatus for the summer, because clearly they
Well, it's
feel
too
they're
hot.
not going to get
Yeah.
many of them out and be in compliance with the Board of Health for the max temperature in there. So definitely consider, a late fall trip where you can hit the Oogie Boogie Bash, or of course the Christmas holidays out there are my favorite. They do a great job celebrating all of the December holidays, and we'll look at getting you on those tours. They book 60 days in advance, so it's too early to book the tours now, but definitely not too early to start planning your trip, your airline tickets, and your resort stay, because this tour is not going to be around for long, and that car will come back off the tracks and back into museum kind of status after.
Okay. Before we say goodbye today, anything else that you want to mention?
Again, these tours are all about Disney history, so I would be remiss if I didn't talk real quickly about Adventures by Disney and the Disneyland tour they offer. I'll put the link in the show notes. You can go all the way back to show 87. I did a detailed review of that tour, access to Imagineering, backstage access you get. And we learned quite a bit about the trains. They talked all about Walt's love of the trains. There are still 7 more times that tour is running this year, with 5 of them being adult exclusive, and 21 departures in 2026, with 7 of them being exclusive. Whether you are doing one of the 2 tours I spoke about or looking at an Adventure by Disney, there are discounts on most dates for Disney Vacation Club members, and we can help you with those bookings. And the tours on select dates also have AP holder discounts. So we'll all take our little bits of discount any way we can get them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, listen, I know that you keep busting my chops to get out there. These are 2 cool little add-ons simply because they are so steeped in the history of Walt himself. So I thank you for taking the opportunity to go out there and walk through them literally and figuratively, and for coming back and sharing it with all of us. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Have a great week. We'll talk to you next week. And that's a wrap this week on Let's Talk Dis. If anyone you know could benefit from this or any show, please share, have them like, and subscribe. And don't forget to reach out to the folks at Easy Dis, my Instant Impressions travel services for any Disney destination planning. Make it a great week, and as always, keep making memories.